The movie starts with a man narrating a primeval ritual of an ancient tribe in the northern regions, including the enduring legend of a hero known as the Dragon Slayer. As it goes, the story starts on a land that has known sadness since. The narrator describes it as a land where tears are where eyes should have been, fear where hearts should have been, and terror where the skies should have been. This is due to a ceremony where the men give the sky the most precious in their lives. In the next scenes, we see a group of elders preparing several young women garbed in white, while the rest of the tribe watch in trepidation and sadness. These women are young brides, groomed by their parents for the creature that haunts the heavens above. They walk on paths of cranberries that resemble blood drops against the snow, towards the black boats where they will lie, waiting for their fate. The rest of the tribe chants a haunting song, a call to the creature. Each boat is pushed towards the middle of the black lake, while the chanting becomes louder and stronger. The clouds above turn from gray to doom. Then, a dragon flies from out of nowhere, a magnificent beast that swoops in to take the tribe's offers. A young maiden is captured and flown to unknown distant lands. It has always been that way for the tribe, until one time, a brave warrior attempts to save his bride. His love is stronger than his fears. He traveled the stormy seas and treacherous lands, guided by the maiden's love for him. But when he finally reaches the dragon's lair, it's too late. His bride has passed away. Filled with grief and fury, the warrior spends all his energy to fight the dragon. In one mighty blow, he ends its life, thereby freeing the tribe from centuries of fear. His victory earns him his epithet, the Dragon Slayer. The narrator continues his story, which happens 3 generations after the time of the Dragon Slayer. The once dreaded ritual is now celebrated as a marriage rite. The grandson of the hero, Igor, is set to marry the tribe chieftain's youngest daughter, Miroslava. Lady servants, together with the older sister Yaroslava, prepare the young bride for her wedding. Miroslava, or Mira for short, is a vibrant, cheerful girl who still plays with her toys and believes in fairy tales, especially about the Dragon Slayer's adventures. She doesn't take her wedding seriously, which makes others think she's still a child through and through. Yaroslava chides her for being immature and for not having the right heart for love. Mira fires back that her sister is simply jealous because she gets to marry before her, and that she can't fully express her fondness for Igor's helmsman, Igoria. A small argument ensues before their father enters the room. He knows his youngest daughter is still a child, but marrying her off to the grandson of the Dragon Slayer will ensure his political power and reach throughout the land. He reminds Mira she's going to be a duchess soon, and that she should take it more seriously. Mira smiles and nods. Soon, she walks out, dressed in an immaculate traditional wedding dress. She walks along the path of cranberries with anticipation for her life ahead. Unlike the dreadful ritual before, the atmosphere at Mira's wedding is full of hope and happy wishes. She lies down on the black boat. Servants then carry the boat outside the house. As soon as Mira sees the sky, the scene changes into that of darkness and storm, and an ominous flap of wide, dark wings. Mira wakes up terrified and finds herself trapped inside a dark cave. She feels an injury on her side, which makes her more disoriented. She sees flashes of her rigorous journey towards her abduction. She remembers her body getting clamped between large reptilian claws. Then, the dragon enters a cave, but it seems to hesitate to drop her. In the end, it decides to drop her inside a cavernous pit, ripping her wedding coat in the process. Adding to her distress is the appearance of a lemur-like animal, snapping its teeth towards her. Mira picks up a stone to defend herself, but a mysterious baritone voice orders her to drop the stone and let the lemur inspect her. Mira follows, and asks the voice if he can help her. The voice responds that unfortunately, he can't help. The dragon won't let them go. She cries in despair, thinking the voice belongs to another prisoner. Then the voice asks why they sang the ritual song. Mira explains everyone thought the dragon had been vanquished. She was supposed to marry the grandson of the Dragon Slayer, and he demanded everyone to chant it. The voice blames them for chanting the ritual song and calling the dragon onto them. Mira passes out, but not before she relives the moments of her capture. She remembers lying on the black boat that had been pushed to float onto the calm black lake. Everyone in the tribe had gathered around to celebrate her wedding. Mira's father gave a speech, then welcomed Igor, who had been waiting at the dock at the other side. Igor was a dashing lad, and he certainly takes after his grandfather, but there's no denying the sense of arrogance and grandeur around him. Igoria gave him the rope tied to Mira's boat, a symbol of him hauling the beautiful bride. Everyone started to chant the ritual song as an honor to the Dragon Slayer. A few moments later, to everyone's horror, the sky darkened, the snow swept over them, and the dragon appeared. It grabbed the boat where Mira was in. Igor tried to pull the rope, thus pulling the boat out of the dragon's claws. But the creature still captured Mira, and then flew back to its lair. Mira wakes up, still inside the cave. A hand reaches out from one of the openings in the hull. The prisoner is offering her herbs to treat her wounds. She takes it, and that's when she gets a glimpse at the prisoner on the other side. For one thing, he doesn't look like one. He has a chiseled face and beetle black intense eyes. He also looks at her, seemingly fascinated as she is with him. She asks him his name, but he says he doesn't remember. Mira removes her clothes to treat her wounds with the herbs. The prisoner can't help but remark how beautiful she is. When she chides him for peeping, he says she's beautiful. He can't help it, The way he says it implies he doesn't understand the implications of peeping. She ignores him and thinks about escaping again. The prisoner warns her to never attempt it. The dragon always hears and sees everything on this island. But in her desperation, she tells him he's a coward, and it's such a shame because she's chosen a name for him. With that, she closes the opening and thinks about her escape plan. She cuts her long hair and braids it to make a rope. A few moments later, the prisoner calls out to her again. He asks what name she chose for him. She says Armen, because it sounds exotic just like him. The prisoner says he likes it. Mira removes the rock and offers Armen a handshake. Pleased with this, he reaches out his hand to take Mira's. As soon as they touch, something horrible happens on Armen's side. He lets go of Mira's hand and orders her to hide and never get out of the pit. Then the dragon shows itself up on top of the pit. It growls menacingly at Mira. Fortunately, its huge body prevents it from entering. After that, it flies away. She takes this chance to get out by using her braided hair, but it soon snaps. Desperate, she removes the rocks from the opening until there's a sizable hole where she can fit. From the darkness on the other side, she can see embers still floating. She fears Armen may have been burned by the dragon. She passes through the hole and sees herself in a cavernous hall. In the middle is a raised platform of flat rock that looks like an altar. Above, she can see the sky. She starts climbing, but the dragon sees her. It tries to grab her several times and blow fire toward her. She escapes from all those attempts. She runs into another opening and finds herself standing on a protruding piece of land. As she looks everywhere, she realizes she's standing on one of the teeth of an ancient skeleton of a dragon. This skeleton is what Armen refers to as the island. Armen finally appears, accompanied by the lemur from earlier. Mira becomes suspicious about Armen and his pet. She keeps stepping backward every time he extends his hand to help. However, Mira takes one step too many and falls off the protruding tooth. Armen doesn't hesitate to jump after her. He catches her, and when he puts his arms around her, an incredible thing happens. A ball of fire appears on his chest and forms veins throughout his body. She tries to get away, but he pleads with her to trust him. Just as before they hit the ground, Armen transforms into the monstrous dragon. It catches Mira with its claws as they hit the ground. The next thing she knows, she's safe, albeit wet, as she has fallen into the water. The great dragon has lost consciousness on the rocks. She takes the chance to shout, to call for help. There is help coming, but they're a long, long way from the dragon's lair. Under Igor's leadership, they have formed a search and rescue voyage to find Mira and save her. Igor urges his master to be more open about their plan, especially the way to the dragon's lair. Surely that's a secret that's been passed down to him from his grandfather. But Igor is resentful about secrets. He doesn't like the idea that the dragon is still alive, implying that his grandfather may have lied to everyone. Still, he assures his helmsman to trust him, as he's certain about what he's doing. Back on the dragon island, Mira realizes they're completely alone. Frustrated, she goes back to where the dragon lies. But all she sees are embers faintly forming the outline of the creature, and Armen, lying unconscious between the rock and the sea. She thinks about ending him, but seeing that the sea can take lives, she decides to leave him to his fate. And yet, something in her tells her to save him. In the next scene, we see her pulling him away. The pet has arrived, dragging a coat to cover his. For the whole night, up until sunrise, Mira laboriously pulled Armen up to the highest peak of the dragon's skull. There are moments when he's half awake, and she accidentally touches him. The fire in his chest starts to burn. But he doesn't fully transform into a dragon. She leaves him there and goes back to the rocky shore and attempts to call for help. Again, there's no clear rescue in sight. She spots an old boat and gets excited. As soon as she rides it, the waves become violent again and the sky dark, as if not allowing her to leave. Mira decides that it's better to wait for Armen to wake up, so she can ask him to fly her back to her tribe. It's raining heavily when she returns to the peak. There's no shelter available, except for the old broken mast and its torn sail. She painstakingly builds their camp, which is much better than being exposed. Her resilience is admirable despite her situation, and her kindness towards the dragon is something to take note of. She notices Armen's wounds, so she decides to treat them using the plants nearby. When his chest burns again, she frantically sings him a lullaby, willing him to sleep. Mira spends the night with her back towards Armen. Later, she dreams of Igor walking up to her. He's finally come to save her. Mira is so happy to see her groom. She runs to him and hugs him. But then she suddenly finds herself in the arms of Armen. He won't let her go. Curiously, she slowly lets herself be pulled to him as she looks at his lips. The light of the morning sun wakes Mira up the next morning. A cozy blanket is draped over her, a bonfire is crackling merrily nearby, and there's a dragon fruit beside her. She eats it, as she hasn't had any decent meal since yesterday. When she looks for Armen, she sees him fishing below. She approaches him and asks him to take her back to her home. But Armen won't respond to her, let alone look at her. So Mira kicks the bucket of fish he has caught, and warns him that she'll never leave him alone unless she gets her answers. Annoyed, he says her request is not as simple as she thinks. She convinces him to tell her why it's complicated, so they can work out a solution. He hears a small compassion in her voice, and perhaps that's why he decides to tell her his story. Armen used to live with his father, a dragon. As a young boy, he looked up to his father, and wished to be like him when the time came. One day, he saw a chest floating towards him. When he opened it, it was full of shadow puppets, although he didn't know it at that time. Those things enthralled him and introduced him to the world of humans, far different from what he knew. His father forbade him to play with those things again when the time came for him to transform. But Armen no longer wanted to do it. His father didn't say anything, as one couldn't transform against their will. And then, that fateful day came. A ship arrived at their lair. From his position, Armen saw how the man stabbed his father with a long spear, causing him to fall to his demise. Filled with rage, bitterness, and a desire for revenge, he forced himself to transform. That's when he found out that not only did he inherit his ancestors' form, but their memories as well. He saw how they kidnapped hundreds of brides and took their lives for centuries, as if he was the one doing it. His ancestors took brides of men and forced them into a bloody and fiery ritual, with the accompaniment of the ritual song. Armen realized he didn't want any of it, and so he vowed to restrain the dragon that's always fighting to come out. When it did, he would run to a narrow passage as a human, so the dragon would be trapped. So far, he was faring well, until Mira's wedding day. He wasn't able to reach that passage on time, and he couldn't control the dragon within. In the present, Armen says the pit is her refuge from him, not her prison. Somehow, the dragon can sense her, so when they touch, it will always rage to come out. That's the reason why he can't simply fly her back to her tribe, and why her people should never sing the ritual song. He adds that the only way for Mira to leave is for her groom to come here and rescue her. And it all depends on her. He invites her to see the rest of the island. Indeed, they are standing on the great skeleton of a dragon, Armen's ancestor. He explains that they can see the sun shining from here, but from outside, all the explorers can see is a thick fog. They can be lost if they continue to venture and can only survive by hanging on to their treasures that float towards the island. But if a girl's heart is true to her love, it can shine as a beacon and may guide him through the fog. Mira thinks about what he said. She sees some wild flowers on the ground, so she picks them up and throws them into the sea. She tells him the flowers are the symbols of her love for Igor and her hopes for him to rescue her. But she knows that a part of her doesn't believe in what she said. Regardless, she decides to help Armen become more in tune with his human side while waiting for her rescue. So, they pick up several floating treasure chests from the sea and haul them inside the dragon's skull. With Mira's upbringing as a princess and Armen as her muscle, they're able to sort out the things they need to make the skull suitable for human living. Although, at times, Armen complains because it's hard to live like a human. It's a good thing there is an assortment of things they can choose from, like drapes, dresses, and mirrors. In no time, they're able to decorate the skull chamber. Mira also teaches him simple things like doing laundry and cleaning his feet before stepping onto the carpet. Armen's pet is simply there, processing in its animal brain what's going on. Perhaps, for the first time in years, Armen laughs as he feels light and appreciative of the simple joys in life. When Mira asks how dragons can fly, he tells her the wind guides them by showing the way. She is surprised to understand he can literally see the wind, something humans can never do. As a treat, he shows her how to do it. He grabs a handful of rose petals, and one by one releases them into the air. The petals seem to follow an invisible line upwards, making them look like they're dancing to those unseen waves. Armen looks at her, admiring her beauty. A few minutes later, gentle rain starts to fall. Mira is enjoying her time on the island, but in the next scene, we see that she has prepared a bag in case she needs to make a voyage out of the island. The pet discovers this and feels threatened, especially when she pulls out a long dagger. But she ensures the animal she won't be leaving unless she really needs to. One night, as they lounge in the chamber, Armen expresses how things have become nice since she came. Mira is touched by this. She tells him she's also happy to have met him. She says it not to ingratiate herself to him, but because it's true. She declares this day to be his birthday and gives him an ocarina as a present. She plays a soft tune, the lullaby she sang to him before. She wishes him to hear songs other than the ritual chant. Armen doesn't want to remember his actual birthday, but because of this gesture, he accepts the gift. He also has something to show her. He beckons her outside, where he ignites some fireworks. He calls them celestial flowers, which are Mira. She thinks these beautiful lights can be seen all over the world. This is a moment they will treasure forever. And even if there's no physical contact between them, they can both feel the deep connection. Later that night, she dreams again about the dragon. She runs when it sees her, but it blocks her way. When she looks into its eyes, she can sense that it's trying to communicate with her. Guided by her intuition, Mira slowly reaches out her hand until she touches the dragon's chest. At first, everything feels right, but the fire starts burning again. She runs away, but the dragon trips her. Lying on the ground, she's helpless to see the great beast descending on her, pouring all of its fire into her. She wakes up screaming, and Armen tries to calm her. She tells him she just dreamt of the dragon, then expresses her fear of it. He promises that the dragon will never hurt her. As proof, he shows her the ocarina and says a new man was born today, who needs her. So, he'll do his best to protect her. Armen goes to his chamber and plays the instrument. He keeps it close to his heart, as it symbolizes his goal to become a human. The next day, Mira makes a dragon kite, while Armen searches for flowers to give her. He remembers what she said before, that flowers represent someone's love. However, the fire in his chest burns again. This time, it only shows along the arm that's holding the flowers, turning them to ashes. It seems like the dragon doesn't want him to have human connections such as love. He tries to run away, in case he transforms again. But Mira finds him and proudly shows her craft. He tells her she's strange for creating a dragon kite despite being scared of the creature. He asks her something that's been bothering him. Why hasn't Igor come to save her? Mira explains that before the wedding rite was completed, the dragon had come to grab her. This implies that even if she doesn't feel any romantic feelings for Igor, the wedding oath will have been enough to guide him here. But since it wasn't completed, then there may be no chance for him to save Mira. Armen doesn't know what to feel about this. Nonetheless, he walks to her to demonstrate how to see the wind using the kite. He stands as close as possible behind her and takes the toy and string from her. Armen puts the kite up, then it catches the wind. They watch it fly. Mira strongly feels his presence behind her. Giving into her need, she leans on his shoulder and lets her hand touch his. This brief moment between them confirms a connection that's far more complex than the physical. They only let go when Armen burns the kite string. In the next scene, we see Armen struggling to keep the dragon in. It wants to come out, to do what has always been done to the brides brought here by its ancestors before. But he won't let it, not when Mira's life is on the line. He plays the ocarina she gave him. Soon everything calms down, and the dragon retreats. When he comes back to his senses, he finds himself on the shore. Then he notices the little boat. He approaches it, and when he lifts the cover, he finds it filled with provisions for a voyage. Suddenly, it dawns on him that Mira has been preparing to escape all along. And there's no question why she would do this. It pains him to admit he still can't control the dragon. Despite his promise, he doesn't know how long he can keep it at bay. Mira is still looking for Armen when she happens by the chamber with the raised rock. Then she hears his voice, telling her to look at the rock that he calls the altar. He asks her questions that should have been asked on her first day here. It's known that brides were brought here by the dragon, but how come there are no obvious bones anywhere? And second, how was Armen born? He suddenly appears behind her and throws a burning paper puppet onto the altar. He says dragons are also called born from the ashes, and the burning puppet represents what had happened to the brides before her. He explains that the brides were brought on the altar and pinned by the dragon's claws. Then, they're filled with fire from within, causing them great agony. The brides were literally... When they turn to smoldering ashes, a baby is born. That's how dragons have kept their lineage for hundreds of years. The bride's fate is what awaits Mira sooner or later. In spite of his pain, Armen forces her to leave the island. He mentions the boat, saying he now understands everything that Mira has done. He doesn't blame her for being scared, but he has hoped he could subdue the dragon within him, if only Mira had believed in him. He tells her what direction to take so she can set sail the next day. Mira tries to plead and explain, but he's already set his mind. He says only the dragon needs her here. He throws the ocarina at her feet, and then proceeds to that narrow passage where he succumbs to his painful transformation. Now that she's walking to her boat, Mira realizes she doesn't really want to leave. Not now that she's gotten used to Armen, his pet, and the island. Not now when she's finally learned to love. But she has no choice. She starts her voyage. In the middle of the sea, Igor and his team seem to be lost in the heavy fog. Igor keeps on suggesting ways to get them out of the situation. But Igor seems to have lost heart in this journey. The helmsman tells his master to sleep. But then he murmurs about his dissatisfaction and bitterly wonders whether the dragon slayer has passed on his secret to his grandson. Igor hears this. He puts a knife around his helmsman and reveals the secret. Mira should have sent a sign of her love that would be his beacon to find her. But since nothing has come their way, it's painfully clear that she's gone. Right after he says this, a bright red light lights up the sky, illuminating the little boat against the fog. They are surprised to realize it's Mira, safe and sound. She tells them that on the day the dragon brought her to its lair, it crashed onto the rocks, leaving her alone in that place. She spent her time looking for a suitable boat, then found this one. Everyone believes her story, but only she knows it's nowhere near the truth. The narrator recounts what happens next. The boy who wants to be a human can't become one, but he doesn't want to be a dragon either. He mourns for Mira's presence, as he realizes she has taught him to make peace with himself. And not only that, she has also taught him something that he only dreamt about and read in books, love. Meanwhile, Mira is set yet again to marry Igor. On the day of the ceremony, her sister Yaroslava expresses her hope for her to forget the nightmare she went through as she starts her new life. Then, their father comes in, happy to see his two daughters. He gives Mira the toy she was playing with before. He tells her the most important thing he should have said, which is that Mira must trust her heart and follow the path where it wants to lead her. That she should be with the one she loves. Mira lies down on the boat again, staring at the bleak sky. The people of the tribe have learned not to sing the ritual song. Back on the island, Armen stands on a cliff. He holds the ocarina while staring at the stormy seas. It's as if he's waiting to hear a certain tune. When it doesn't come, he jumps. The fire starts burning again, and he plays the instrument. But this time, it doesn't calm him or the dragon. Igor picks up the rope and starts pulling Mira's boat. Only a few feet more, and the wedding ritual will be complete. Mira will become Igor's, but she cannot do it. She will not do it. She suddenly announces she doesn't love Igor, and instead, she's in love with the dragon. Everyone is scandalized by this declaration. She removes the rope from the boat. Then, with defiance, she stands up and sings the ritual song. Her resounding voice fills the air. At first, nothing happens. But Mira sees the sway of the snowflakes, which tells her that Armen will come. And he does. He swoops in to grab Mira. Igor, whose ego has been shattered by Mira's defiance, won't allow something like this to happen. He grabs a spear and aims it at the dragon. Yaroslava sees this and cries out to stop him. Igor hears her. He stops his master and punches him for good measure. Everyone looks up as the magnificent beast takes away its bride for the second time. Upon arriving at the island, the dragon drops Mira on the altar. But before it can start its ritual, she grabs its head and kisses it. She knows that Armen is there, sharing one mind with the dragon. And she's right, as the dragon steps back, seemingly hesitating. She takes this chance to tell the beast she's here to accept it, man or dragon. She's here to love Armen. She kneels and spreads her arms, comforting the dragon that it's okay for it to be the way it is. Slowly, the dragon starts walking to her, and to the amazement of both, the creature puts its head on her lap. The narrator, who turns out to be Armen, ends the story by saying the girl has saved the dragon and given it the most precious gift of all. He uses shadow puppets to tell the story. A toddler suddenly opens the curtains and asks her father what gift the girl gave to the dragon. She also asks where dragon children come from. Armen simply looks at his daughter, as she's the most important thing in his life. He embraces the child and is about to relay the gruesome parts of the story when Mira comes in. She chides Armen not to tell that part. Then, she picks up their daughter and tells her dragon children are born out of the sky. She tucks her into her cozy little crib, and soon the toddler falls asleep. Armen tells Mira it's time. He orders his pet to look after their daughter. The couple stands by the cliff, where Armen willingly transforms. The dragon closes its eyes to feel Mira's touch. She rides the magnificent beast, and they both fly to the sky. They stay among the clouds, where the wind guides their hearts to their path together.